This is a trademark application, filed February 10th, 2020, by a company in New York. A claim on a single word. You know the word. You maybe learned to count under it. Bought a parakeet under it. A bag of penny candy by the front door. The word is Woolworths. Here is the strange part. The company that filed this claim had spent years scrubbing that name off its own buildings. It didn't want to be Woolworths anymore. It had become something else entirely. So why, after all that, would it reach back into the drawer for the name it threw away? Case file FM007. Subject: the Woolworth Company. It began with a farm boy from upstate New York. Frank Woolworth was, by most accounts, a poor salesman. But he had one gift. He knew how to make a table of cheap goods irresistible. In 1879, he borrowed about $300 and opened his own 5-cent store in Utica, New York. It closed in about 3 months. 4 months later, he tried again, this time in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. He had scouted the town, and he made one change that changed everything. Alongside the 5-cent goods, he added a 10-cent line. The 5 and 10 was born. On opening day, June 21st, 1879, one small store took in $127.65. Woolworth wrote it down himself.
We managed to sell yesterday in one day $127.65, which is the most I ever sold in one day.
That receipt was the whole idea, proven in a single day. Sell a lot for a little. Buy straight from the makers, so the nickel price still turned a profit. Woolworth spread the model through a family of stores run by his brother, his cousins, his partners. In 1912, 5 of those chains merged into one, 596 stores worth $65 million. By then, Woolworth wanted a monument. In 1913, he opened the tallest building in the world, 792 feet of neo-Gothic stone over Lower Manhattan. A minister called it the Cathedral of Commerce, and the name stuck. Woolworth had said he wanted more than a building. He wanted, in his words, an ornament to the city. And here is the part that tells you everything about the man. He paid for all of it in cash. $13.5 million out of his own dividends. No mortgage. Not one dime borrowed. From President Wilson's desk in Washington, a button lit the whole tower at once. 6 years after the lights came on, Frank Woolworth died of blood poisoning from an infected tooth. The man was gone. The machine kept multiplying without him. By 1960, the company's sales passed $1 billion for the first time. By its 100th birthday in 1979, Woolworth's was the largest department store chain on earth. You have to understand what that meant. A Woolworth's sat on nearly every main street in America. You could hear the parakeets from the sidewalk, penny candy and roasted peanuts by the door, and in the back, the lunch counter, a place to sit, to gossip, to rest your feet. It was so ordinary that a 1928 love song used it for a punchline. "Diamond bracelets Woolworth doesn't sell, baby." Everyone knew exactly what that meant. And because it was everywhere, because it was so ordinary, a Woolworth's counter became one of the most important stages in American history. February 1st, 1960, Greensboro, North Carolina. 4 college freshmen, Ezell Blair, Franklin McCain, Joseph McNeil, David Richmond, bought a few small things, then sat down at the whites-only lunch counter and asked to be served. A waitress told them, "We don't serve Negroes here." They stayed anyway, until closing. One of them, Franklin McCain, later put it as plainly as it can be put.
"We didn't want to put the world on fire. We just wanted to eat.
Woolworth's headquarters made its choice quickly. It would, in the company's own words, abide by local custom. A supervisor on the phone that first day predicted the students would soon give up, leave, and be forgotten. He was wrong on every count. In 1 week, 4 students became more than 1,000. Within 3 months, the sit-ins had spread to 55 cities across 13 states. On July 25, 1960, the Greensboro counter was quietly desegregated. 4 black employees served first, out of uniform, with no announcement at all. Today, a section of that counter sits in the Smithsonian. Nobody was forgotten. So this was the peak. $1 billion a year. The largest chain on earth. A name woven into the country's memory. And it is right here, at the very top, that the real story begins. Because while Woolworth's was booming, the ground was already moving. In 1 year, 1962, 3 new kinds of store opened their first doors. Kmart, Target, Walmart. Bigger, cheaper, hungrier. Woolworth's answer was to build a discount chain of its own, called Woolco. But it made a second move, a far quieter one. In 1963, Woolworth's bought a shoe company, Kinney. It looked small. It was not. 11 years later, on September 12, 1974, one of Kinney's little experiments opened in a California mall. It sold sneakers. It was called Foot Locker. Over the next 30 years, that sneaker store would quietly carry the whole corporation on its back, while the five and dimes that built everything slowly bled money. Woolco was shut down in 1982, and the old stores were shrinking. A Woolworth's ran maybe 16,000 square feet. A Walmart supercenter, 10 times that. By the mid-90s, the math was brutal, and everyone inside the company knew it. Then came a quiet signal from Wall Street. On March 17, 1997, Walmart formally replaced Woolworth on the Dow Jones Industrial Average, the short list of companies that stand for American business. The five and dime was struck from the record. The discounter took its seat. That was the eulogy. The funeral came 4 months later, July 17, 1997. Woolworth Corporation announced it would close every remaining five and dime store it owned in the United States. 400 stores, 9,200 people. 118 years, ended in a single press release. The company built on the name Woolworth had decided, at last, that Woolworth's was not worth saving. The chairman, Roger Farah, explained it in the language of a balance sheet.
This company has invested significant resources in trying to revitalize the F.W. Woolworth chain, including time, money, and management's attention.
And the numbers were real. That last year, the five and dime still sold about $1 billion, but it had lost $37 million. So the company took a $223 million charge against its books and let it die. Down the street from a closing store in Cambridge, a woman who had worked that block for years said only, "I'm certainly going to miss it." Then, the company did the strangest thing of all. It changed its own name. In June 1998, Woolworth Corporation became Venator Group, Venator, Latin for hunter. That same year, it sold Frank Woolworth's cathedral, the tower he had paid for in cash. 3 years later, in November 2001, Venator changed its name again to Foot Locker. 3 names in 5 years. The company that had carried the name Woolworth for more than a century was now, officially, a sneaker store. So where is it now? The tower still stands at 233 Broadway, a national landmark, its top floors converted into luxury condominiums. A section of the counter sits in the Smithsonian. And on the very real estate Woolworths walked away from, small stores reopened under a name that says everything. Used to be Woolworths. One of the owners explained why people still come in. Because, he said, there's something there that they can relate to, something they've seen before. Which brings us back to that trademark application. February 10th, 2020. The sneaker company that had spent 2 decades erasing the name Woolworth quietly filed to own it again. For stores, for clothing, for shoes. And it still isn't using it. It just holds it. The company that decided Woolworths wasn't worth saving now keeps the name locked in a drawer, like a ghost it can't quite bury and can't quite let go. So here's our question, for the people who were there. If you ever sat at a Woolworths counter, spinning on a stool, waiting on an ice cream sandwich or a hot dog, tell us which town and who was sitting beside you. The sources for this file are in the pinned comment. Case closed.